What is going on, Badger fans? Great episode of Locked On Badgers today. Let's get some good vibes going again. We got the basketball 23 class on campus. I want to talk about each player, what I expect this year, some other thoughts on that class, including AJ Storr can fly. Let's talk about that. Plus, some football recruits on deck, still making important decisions. So we're going to talk about all that and more on a really good episode of today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers, everything you want in one spot. I am your host, as always, Ryan Herrings. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, for being part of this community we're building. It's something we're doing together, and it's really just kind of our little thing, and I love it. We celebrate and we complain together, but we do it together, and that's the point. I want to talk about, so yesterday was a tough day, right? Lose Booker, Woodward, it was a little frustrating. Let's get some positivity. Let's get some believe with Rajiv in today's show, even without the man himself. I want to talk about the 23 basketball class. They officially moved in. They're on campus. This is a class I like a lot. They posted kind of the Wisconsin basketball program posted a bit of a quick workout video. And listen, it's off season, so we're hyper analyzing like every angle and looking at everything. But I got to be honest, I love this class. I really like this class. I don't know. I think you could have used another shot creator in the backcourt probably, but I really like this class. Let's talk about it. I want to start with Gus Yalden, who I've spent a ton of time talking about, right? The 4-star forward. He looks great. Like, I don't know. So people who may have been following the Gus Yalden commitment, right? He committed and then they kind of tuned out on it. A lot of people kind of tune out on recruits once they commit and then they just kind of wait for them to start playing, right? The thing with Yalden was always really skilled player. The scouting report would tell you good shooter, great feel, passionate about the game, plays below the rim, not an above the rim elite athlete, needs to work on his body a little bit. He has worked on his body. For those who haven't been really following, he looks great. And if he's going to be in that type of shape, I'm telling you, he's playing this year. So let's talk 2023, 24 projections, thoughts. Gus Yalden's playing this year. I predicted he's going to get 10 to 15 minutes a game. He's obviously going to have to earn it, but I think he's the backup 5. I think he's playing this year, and I think he's going to have a big-time Wisconsin Badgers career. He played against the best type of competition you could in high school. I'll always go back to the quote I had from Jason Jordan when he was coming on the show, the Sports Illustrated basketball scouting director. He said every time I walked into a gym that had Gus Yalden in it, Gus Yalden left that gym as the best post player. Didn't matter how many 4- and 5-star post players were there. Nobody could handle Gus. I like the swagger. I love the nickname, the Gus Bus. He's going to play right away. And this is going to be a Brad Davidson type of player for Wisconsin. Is my prediction for Gus Yalden. So Yalden's on campus. Can't wait to see it. He's going to play this year. I'd be stunned if he didn't. Let's talk about Nolan Winter. Nolan Winter, to me, is incredibly interesting, not just from a long-term perspective, but from this year. How many minutes is Nolan playing this year? Originally, I kind of thought when let's go back to the beginning. When he committed, I said, he's probably going to redshirt, right? Nolan's going to redshirt, which is fine, right? That's absolutely fine. Take a year, get some weight on his body, and then be a really solid player for the next couple of years. He's coming in at like 220, 230, right? That's big enough to play right now. He has a skill set that's unique. The thing with Winter is he's not just a pick and pop guy. He can slash. He can get to the rim. I like his game quite a bit. I think he could take a lot of what Carter Gilmore did last year, him and Yalden, and eat into those minutes. So I don't know how many minutes are really there. We talked about it on a previous show. When you start breaking it down, there's not a ton. But the place the minutes are is in the front court, right? It's at the 4 and the 5 because you have Wall and you have Crowell. And then you just have a big question mark after it. You have Carter Gilmore, who you absolutely know will go in and give 110% of what he's got, play pretty good defense, but he's just not an impactful offensive player. And I think that's a spot where both Winter and Yalden can play. What do I think for this year with Winter? I've started to come around on the idea that he's going to play, that he's not going to redshirt. I think he's big enough, and I think the skill set translates. So, yeah, I think that's another one that's going to play. Let's talk John Blackwell Jr. This one to me, Blackwell gets forgotten about in this class. Absolutely forgotten about in this class because you have Yalden, you have Winter. Blackwell was not as highly recruited, but I'm telling you, 6'4" can really shoot the ball. Now, let's start here. The reason, in my opinion, he wasn't as highly recruited is he does not have the elite athleticism for a two guard. I don't think he plays above the rim quite as much. I don't think he has the incredible burst. But what he is he's physically developed. He can shoot the ball really well. I think he's probably the best pure shooter in this class potentially, and he is legit size for the two. He's a 6'4" guy that's well built. He's going to get after it defensively. That's part of his scouting report coming from high school. So that's a guy that checks a lot of boxes. You're going to have a 6'4" guy who's well built, muscular, plays hard defensively, and really shoots the ball. That's a 3-and-D guy in modern basketball. Like that's notes. You can never have too many of those dudes at the college or the pro level. This year, what's my 2023 thoughts on Blackwell? I think he redshirts. I've talked about it before. I just think you're going to, barring injury, all this is barring injury, right? But Hepburn is going to play, Hepburn's going to play 30 minutes, 32 minutes, 33 minutes. Asijan's going to play more, right? So Connor's going to play, he was at 27 last year. I think you're going to bump that up to 30, 31 this year. Max Klesmit, is going to get 25, 30 minutes. After that, there's just not a lot of minutes. You still have Kamari McGee there who could fill in as that backup point guard duty. So I think Blackwell redshirts, but I'm excited about his future. I think there's more there than people give him credit for because he gets lost in a class with Yalden and Winter. Really, really, really high floor type player because you can shoot, play defense, and you have size. Those are three boxes that if you can check those three boxes, you're going to find your way onto a court. The ceiling will come down to how well can he develop as a ball handler. Is he able to maybe become a little bit more of a facilitator, not a point guard, but a secondary playmaker, something in that role. If he can do those things, you're talking about a strong starting caliber shooting guard in the Big Ten. I also want to mention just quickly, so we don't lose track of it, Jack Janicki was a preferred walk-on that committed from the state of Minnesota. Normally Wisconsin kind of has, the football program is different than the basketball program. The football program, the walk-on tradition is incredible. We know that, right? You could Rolodex down a list of names and come up with, college football Hall of Fame level talents. Yeah. But the basketball side, the walk-on program, you have Zach Showalter, who was a walk-on. But for the most part, the walk-on program has been more of program filler, right? Guys that we want to fill out practice rotations, scout team rotations. But Jack Janicki's interesting to me. Jack Janicki, he's a walk-on, but he's a walk-on who is 6'4" and who can really shoot the ball, right? Walk-on out of Minnesota, 6'4", averaged 24 points per game as a senior. And again, he can really shoot. Legitimately. He is a legitimate college Division I shot, and he's a 6'4" frame. So the athleticism's not great. Off the bounds isn't great. How's he going to defend? All these are viable questions. But as a walk-on, this is probably about as good as you're going to get. And it's somebody not to file away for 2023 or 2024. But it's somebody to file away and say in 2025, 2026, is this a guy who could become like a Tim Jarmusch, that type of player, getting 10 minutes a game to space the floor? Possible. I wouldn't throw it out because he checks the size box and he checks the shooting box. All right, let's get into the transfer now, AJ Storr. So the video that Wisconsin released, right? It was just a quick snapshot of each player, like doing one thing. You had Janicki with a little bit of a push shot. You had Gus Yalden with kind of an up and under, a bit of a reverse pivot, I think it was, which is such a Gus thing. You had Nolan Winter shooting a free throw, Blackwell in the paint, fadeaway shot. And then you had AJ Storr soaring through the air to yam one home. And I'm watching this and I'm just like, first of all, that's what a five-star athlete looks like. You remember AJ Storr coming in, transfer, was a freshman last year. He was one of the top recruits in the country, right? And he's coming into Madison now after 1 year as a part-time starter. This is what a five-star athlete looks like. That's the difference, right? It's all created equally. But this is what a five-star athlete looks like. My goodness, the clip of him, and go find it if you haven't seen it. I'll tweet it out too. We haven't had at Wisconsin many dudes who get above the rim like AJ Storr is capable of doing. And this is a ceiling raiser, right? This is somebody to be excited about. I know he committed a while ago and basketball's a ways off, so it kind of gets forgotten about. But AJ Storr could change the dynamic in the ceiling of this team just with his athleticism and his wing offensive potential alone. So Badger fans, be excited about this year. I know we're getting caught up in Con Knippel, Jackson McAndrew, Daniel Freitag. What's the future look like in 2 years, what this team could be? Be excited about the 2023-2024 version of the Wisconsin Badgers basketball team, ladies and gentlemen, because adding AJ Storr into this mix, it's like adding whipped cream into the sundae. Now we're really getting into some premium stuff here. So I'm excited about it. I think this team with AJ Storr, if he can ratchet up his game and become a better, I think he will, by the way, a better version of what he was last year, the team coming around him is going to be pretty good. It really is. I think people are sleeping on it. I think it's a top 4, top 5 Big Ten team, and then there's more upside coming down the road with this group. But I'm excited about next year, guys, and I can't wait to see it happen. All right, we're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show. Coming back, we have a lot of prospects. So I know it's been a bit of a lull in the football recruiting. I want to talk about some of the big prospects that are still in the pipeline, have decisions coming up where the Badgers are in a good spot for. Let's keep this feel-good vibe show going. Let's talk about some football prospects that I think the Badgers are going to get that are going to get us really excited. So we're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Birddogs. Listen, I've talked about it. I have multiple stories here, y'all, and they're all true. Like, I almost hired a fashion consultant. I've been mistaken as a homeless person. My wife crept over my shoulder as I was buying work clothes, which in reality are just sweatshirts, basketball shorts, and sweatpants. Birddogs allows me to be good looking, at least my legs, right? Not so much up here, but it allows my legs to look great, gives me some fashion, but it also lets me be the comfortable casual dude that in my heart, that's my sweet spot, right? That's my true north. That's my compass finding. That's where I roll over and stop at, is comfortability, being comfortable in my skin, going out, not feeling like I'm constantly having to adjust pants. And I just need to be comfortable. That is what it is. That's 100% of where my mentality is. Birddogs is the ultimate in comfort for the summer. Sweat wicking clothes, incredible look, great style. It makes me look good and it makes me feel comfortable. And if you go to birddogs.com/lockedoncollege, you get a free Yeti-style tumbler with every purchase. I never take my Birddogs off. You'll never take them off either, especially in the summer. Birddogs.com/lockedoncollege. Get a free Yeti-style tumbler with every order. You will not regret it. I want to say thank you again. Everybody just tuning into the show, and y'all are amazing. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I can't wait to keep this conversation and this community growing, especially. There's a lot of fun things coming up, y'all. Football is like 70 days away. Basketball is going to fall after that. A lot of recruiting news coming up. So stay tuned here for all the everydayers. I really do appreciate it. And let's keep this conversation going. Let's talk. I think this is important. We had a bit of it's fair to say, like a bit of a rough day the other day, right? Couple decommitments. Let's talk about some of the players that are out there, that are still out there, that are on the horizon, that at least the Badgers are in a good spot for. They're in the foxhole for these players, right? And they're not going to get every single one of these, but they're going to get some of these guys. And these are dudes. So yes, losing Sexton stings, losing Roy stings. I mean, listen, losing Roy to Minnesota is what stings. Let's be honest. If Roy had just gone to UCLA like we all thought he would, I don't think anybody cares. I really don't. I think everybody like, okay, that makes sense. Going to Minnesota, man, that is a painful pill to swallow. Let's just say that. So losing some of these players stings, but let's talk about what's in the pipeline, what's coming up. Badgers fans, be excited about some of these players. So Emilio Agard, I think we need to start there. And I listed him first for a reason, for multiple reasons. If you've been with us from the jump, right? And no worries if you haven't. Don't feel bad if you haven't been with this show from the jump. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad or good about that one way or the other. But if you remember one of my early shows, it was why can we never beat Ohio State, right? I did like a 17-minute clip video on the last 10 losses. And because over the course of 10 losses, you should just get friggin' lucky once in a while. It's not like Wisconsin's been a dumpster fire. They haven't, but they never beat them. And why? Why do we never beat them? And what it came down to when you really look through draft picks, recruiting rankings, Wisconsin matches up pretty well in a lot of spots with Ohio State. Offensive line, defensive line, linebacker. It comes down to quarterback, receiver, and cornerback. That's where Wisconsin doesn't get people drafted, and that's where Ohio State gets a plethora of people drafted, and that's what the modern game of football is all about. Edges, speed and space, quarterback play, can you hit the quarterback? Can you cover receivers? Can you get open? Wisconsin hasn't been able to do any of those things, and Ohio State does those things in spades, right? They have a monopoly on those things. They have Park Place and Boardwalk with hotels on those things, right? And Wisconsin has, I don't know, what's Oriental Avenue, what the light blue one? Wow, that's a Monopoly reference there. Monopoly cost me a friendship, by the way. I'll get into that story at some point. Yeah. Anyway, so I listed Emilio Agard number one for a reason. He's a 4-star cornerback that has like 30 plus offers. At some point, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, I think Texas was in on him. Like, this is an elite offer list cornerback, a 4-star kid out of Pennsylvania. The Badgers are in a great spot for him. He's committing on July 1st, so we're about 8 days away. This would be a massive win. And, there are always questions when you look at offer lists, right? What's committable? So we're looking at Emilio Agard right now, and we're talking about an offer list that has Clemson and Alabama, Tennessee was in there. So 30 elite offers, 30 great offers. All of those are not committable, but what you take from it, don't look at that and say, but maybe he's not committable to those places. Look at it. Those are all legitimate schools that reached out and had interest in him, at least at one point. And I think that's what you gauge it by, right? To some degree. If you have an Alabama and a Clemson kicking the tires on a guy and getting him in on an official visit and at least at some point extending an offer, that dude is a legit player. And if that player happens to be a cornerback, a spot where Wisconsin has sorely lacked talent, not only is it a legit player, it's a legit player fitting into a puzzle piece that you haven't been able to find for a long time, right? That cornerback puzzle piece of Wisconsin's roster has been missing under the couch for 25 years at your mom's cabin. Emilio Agard is like that type of piece that you can find and plug into this defense and instantly elevate everything else around it because it makes your pass rush better, right? If you have guys on the edge that can match up to some degree with Ohio State, your pass rush has a half tick to get to the quarterback, right? Your linebackers maybe don't need as much depth on their drops because you can handle the outside. So maybe now your linebackers can get up and disrupt some of the smoke screens and some of that nonsense that Ohio State is always just throwing to the outside and letting their receivers and their athletes go to work in space. That's what a guy like this does. This is a huge target out there. Wisconsin's right in the thick of this one, right? So Emilio Agard, someone to look forward to. Dominic Nichols is another one that's out there. It sounds like a Wisconsin-Michigan battle. Michigan's going to be tough to beat, but when you're competing with 4-star defensive linemen, there's always going to be somebody tough to beat. Wisconsin's right there. They had an official visit. This dude would be a monster in the system. 6'5", 250, the type of frame that is just a massive ball of clay. Dominic Nichols, right? Huge ball of clay. Offers from Clemson, Florida State. Georgia was in on him as well. So great offer list, huge frame. Another kid that if Wisconsin gets, he just changes the dynamic defensively. And Wisconsin's right there for Nichols. They're in on a new transfer quarterback. Michael Mack, a transfer cornerback out of Air Force, just put his name in the portal. He has 2 years of eligibility left. He started for 2 years. As per usual, he's 6'1", 190 pounds. So they're continuing to attack the secondary. That's an interesting one to me because they've already landed two transfer quarterbacks this cycle, and it looks like they're trying to get a third. I think that tells you what they thought about the depth at this position. That's interesting to me. You still have those two big running backs out there, right? Dupree and Dylan Jones, both 4-star level talents. I firmly believe Wisconsin's getting one of those two with an outside shot that they get both. But I think they're getting one of them for sure. Dupree's always been the one I'm a little higher on, but I know there's people who like Dylan Jones more. You get either one of them, and that's an elite running back. Joe Barna's out there, a 6'5", 250-pound defensive lineman out of Illinois. Justin really loves his film. So Barna's a guy not as highly ranked, but does have an Oklahoma offer. That's a legit thing. Good size, really good burst. And again, Justin, who watches a lot of film, loves his film. That's a guy Wisconsin can be in the driver's seat for. You still have Liam Andrews, who's a 4-star, high 4-star. Defensive lineman, offensive lineman out of Massachusetts. Wisconsin has been working on selling Andrews as a defensive lineman, which I think is a little unique. And sometimes being unique gets you into battles and wins battles, right? So Andrews is still out there. That would be an incredibly big win. Him and Benedict Uma, the defensive lineman out of Connecticut, who's still out there as well. I think he's probably going to Penn State. That's my feel on it. But those two are out there. And then don't forget about Anelu Lafayette, the elite edge defender coming out of East St. Louis Prep High School, the powerhouse in Hawaii. He's committing on July 11th. I think he's a Wisconsin lean. Wisconsin's been on him forever. The previous staff was on him. This staff is in on him. He's a high 3-star, low 4-star edge player. Really explosive film. a little undersized. Like, he doesn't have the frame of a Nichols. He's more 6'2", 6'3", but fast, explosive in space, a big-time hitter, can cover ground. That would be a huge pickup as well. So a lot of talent out there, Badger fans. I wouldn't get too – listen, be frustrated when somebody you like decommits. I think that's fair. If we're going to get excited about a Woodward committing or a Booker committing – by the way, Booker just committed to UCLA, so that happened. Not really a surprise to a lot of people who were tracking this thing. It's okay to be frustrated by those losses, but there's a lot of big targets out there for Wisconsin, and this is just a snippet of them. This is not the full Rolodex here. So I expect Wisconsin fans to be pretty excited about, by the end of July, what Wisconsin has in the stable. I think is going to look pretty good for the 2024 football class. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Come back with a few of your comments, talk about the coaching list we did, and something that's kind of unique about this community we're building as well. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers, but first, a quick break for friends of the show. Do want to say thank you again for always tuning into this, whether you're watching it on YouTube, listening on the podcast, whatever it is. Thank you so much for letting us be a small part of your day. It really does mean a lot, and I can't say that enough. So thank you for that, and let's keep going. Let's keep talking here. This is from Jonah Schultz. And Jonah, thank you for the comment. I apologize if I mispronounced the name. This class ends up 30 to 35. So he's talking about the football recruiting class ending up in the 30 to 35 range. I don't think so. I think it's going to be higher. I think this class is more likely 25 to 30 than 30 to 35. And I think that's fine for a first year, right? I'll be honest, if it ends up 25 to 30, that's a little lower than I thought Fickell would do in his first year. And to that degree, it's a little disappointing. Part of this was based on, if you remember when Fickell was hired, I did a show talking about how this in-state class would really be a boon to Luke Fickell, right? Really help him build the foundation of his first class. Boy, that was a good take there, Ryan. But I thought that, that in-state class of multiple 4-star level players would help him elevate into a first-year class that would settle into about the top 20, top 25 range. And just not landing those dudes, I think, makes it hard to get a top 20 class now. So I think 25 to 30 is probably realistic. That's a good class. It's not a great class, and it's going to have to get better than that. But you have to give a coaching staff more than a year, right? It takes time to develop relationships, to build boards. So I think next year is going to be a better indication one way or the other, right? If it's another class next year where it's 25 to 35, somewhere in that range, well, now you have 2 data points on the trend line, and you're starting to move in a direction you didn't love. So next year is going to be a better indicator to me, but we'll see. I think 30 to 35 is too low for this year. I think he's going to be a little higher than that. Let's see. Bucky63 says, these are 17-year-old kids. They regularly commit and decommit until signing day. Not unexpected, but still disappointing. Yeah. I mean, that's a great perspective. And I'll just say this too. Like, there's a couple things that, and I could be on islands on this, so let me know if you disagree, and that's totally fine. As always, it's absolutely fine and encouraged to disagree on this show as long as we can do it respectfully. I don't really get too frustrated with kids that commit or decommit. I know there's people out there who think that's a sign of a lack of character, who think when you commit, you should stay committed. And I can 100% see that viewpoint. Where I would push back a little bit is how many, I always try to put these things into real life perspectives, right? Which isn't always fair because college football and this stuff isn't really real life. But if you were job hunting, right, as an adult, not even as a 17-year-old, you're job hunting, and you take an offer with a job you really like, you're excited about it, and in the moment, you mean it. You're not lying to that company. You say, yeah, I'm committed to this. I want to join this company. I'm excited. Let's make it happen. You shake on it. And then another offer from a different company comes in, and that company is better, in your opinion. Now, it may not be better in everyone else's opinion, but it doesn't matter what everyone else's opinion is. It's up to you to make your life and choose your roads. And if this other company is better, maybe they pay a little bit more, or maybe you just like the work environment, or maybe you like your coworkers more, maybe you like their vision more, whatever it is, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's up to what you want to do. How many of us as adults have decommitted from a job to take a better offer somewhere else? How many of us would put blame on a coworker for doing that? I don't think they would be realistic, but we hold 17-year-old kids to standards that we don't ourselves, hold other adults to. We're upholding them to things that I don't think we would uphold each other to. And so that's why the decommitments, commitments, they don't really bother me. Like, kids should find the best opportunity they can. And if that means they commit to one and they find, in their opinion, a better opportunity later, I would much rather have them go somewhere where they think they have a better chance of happiness and success than sticking with a commitment that they don't think they're going to be successful or happy with. So that's where I'm at with that. I don't begrudge them. And let's be honest, I'm not saying Wisconsin does this. I'm not saying Luke Fickell does this. But let's be honest, like, a lot of colleges do the same thing, right? They recruit over players, they pull scholarships, they play scholarship games, they manipulate kids, they manipulate numbers. So it goes both ways. And if colleges can do that, I just don't have an issue with kids doing it. And to Bucky's point, Bucky 63's point, yeah, they're 17-year-old kids. They're going to change their mind even more than we do. And quite frankly, we change our mind all the time as adults. So that's where I'm at on that one. Let me know if you think I'm wrong, though. I can take that. Alec Weiss 7404 says, count me out on the French as a top 5 Big Ten coach. Yes, thank you, Alec. That's what I'm talking about. I've never disagreed with a guy named Alec. Iowa is hiring a new athletic director for the first time in 17 years. And he went on to say, I had to cut this comment, but he went on to say that he thinks the France's time might be numbered with a new athletic director. Listen, I know people have disagreed with me on this, and I get there is a point to Luke Ferentz having a consistent program that sustains success, a defensive program that sustains success. You cannot have that situation as an offensive coordinator, your son who is an abysmal failure, the fan base in revolt, having to rewrite a contract to ensure he scores a certain amount of points in a game. You cannot have that situation as a head coach and be a top 5 coach in the Big Ten. You can't. I'm sorry. Again, top 5 father in the Big Ten? Absolutely. 100%. And that's more important than being a coach to me. Being a good father is more important than being a coach. But let's be real. You can't put your son in that position either, quite frankly, right? Where your son is getting crucified on message boards because he's inept as he's just not an offensive coordinator. It is what it is. But because he's his son, he gets to keep the spot. It's a mess, man. And no, you can't be a top 5 Big Ten coach if you allow that to go on. Sharp says, I think Antonio Finellis flipped Woodward. Finellis is from Florida too. They just hired him to coach DBs at Illinois. Sharp, that's an awesome comment because I didn't even realize that Finellis was coaching at Illinois. So they got Finellis and Aaron Henry coaching on the defensive side there. Henry's the defensive coordinator. Excuse me. Finellis is coaching DBs. Obviously, both with ties to Bielema. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm still a little bummed about the Woodward flip. I know there's some that don't really care as much. I thought his film was ridiculously good. Great size. Brian Smith, who I had on, who's seen him, he had talked to a coach of his, said all of the athletic tools are there. I mean, it is what it is. I'll get over it. But yeah, that's one that still bums me out. Here Now says both of these are run-of-the-mill 3-star recruits. No big loss, really. There are many more where they came from. I would agree and disagree. So I would disagree with your first part here, right? I don't think these are run-of-the-mill 3-star recruits. And let's be honest with ourselves. We were not saying when they committed they were run-of-the-mill 3-star recruits, right? I remember when Booker committed. I remember when we had Booker on the show. I remember when Woodward committed. When those dudes committed, we were excited. We liked the film. We liked the upside. I still think Booker's upside is as like a stretch, like a Lance Kendricks, Travis Beckham type of a weapon, an NFL weapon. Like that's not a run-of-the-mill 3-star recruit. It's just not. It's not. And I don't want to just sit here and if we get guys, we love them. If we don't get them, we don't care. No, like the film is the film, right? The truth is the truth. Now you can disagree with that truth, but in my opinion, the truth is the truth. And these were 2 Plan A targets with great athletic tools and a lot of upside. Both of them need polish, right? Grant Steck is the more polished of the two. I think he's the more all-around tight end right now. He's bigger. He's a better blocker. But Booker's got upside, man. He has got athletic upside. I love the game there. And Woodward, same way. So I wouldn't say no big loss, but I do agree with your second point. There's a lot more prospects where they came from. I don't know if there's another Booker you're going to land in this class, but there are more athletic tight ends out there. There's more cornerbacks out there. This is not the death knell to the 2024 Wisconsin football recruiting class, but I wouldn't just say, whatever, don't care, no big loss. I wouldn't. I have no issues if that's where you're at, though. Let's finish up here. John Berger says, love you guys. My favorite show every day. Never miss an episode. It's nice to mourn communally. John, what's up, man? Friend of the show. I wanted to put this comment up here because, hey, there's a lot of people who watch this show every day, every other day, once a week, twice a week, whatever it is. And thank you. Honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for doing that and for allowing us again to be part of your day. I want to point out the last sentence here. It's nice to mourn communally. Yeah, like this is a community. And it's like our own little thing, right? And it's really grown with the Discord, the comments. There's so many listeners and people who put comments consistently in the show that like I get used to seeing different people and different commenters and comments in our community. And it's so cool. So yeah, a lot of people thank me for making the content. And I would just thank you guys for helping build this community because it's as much you guys are giving into this as much as I am, right? And I get so much out of it to get to talk Badgers with other Badger fans. You know how many Badger fans are in Connecticut? 0. Well, 1. Well, 2. 3. Sorry. I know of 3. 4. Nope. I know 4, actually. That's still not many, right? There's not many. So my point is it's great for me to have this outlet as well. And this community, it means a lot to me. And I get defensive of it. I care about it. I pour into it, and a lot of other people pour into it too. And it's awesome. It's only going to get bigger and better, I hope. And I hope to continue growing it and continue putting out great content for everybody. And then continuing to get great content from y'all as you leave messages and comments. So many shows I end up putting comments in because you guys bring up great points and incredible insights. And it just makes it better. I think it's a very unique thing we built here. And I think we built it the right way. We very rarely ask for subscriptions or likes or shares. In fact, I almost never do. Because I think those things are important. And if you want to do it, that's incredible. Occasionally, I probably should ask, but I think we're building it organically. And I think we're doing it the right way. So I thought it was a good comment from John, but I wanted to kind of expound on it a little bit more. Anyway, appreciate y'all. If you're an everydayer, love y'all. If you're not, love you too. On Wisconsin, and we'll talk tomorrow.